You think you know these stories, don't you? You are wrong. You don't know them at all. 12 tales, 12 dangerous tales of mystery, magic, and rebellious hearts. Each twists like a spindle to reveal truths full of warning and triumph, truths that free hearts long kept tame, truths that explore life and death. Here is a preview of Beasts and Beauty, Dangerous Tales by Soman Chainani. Today we will be reading an excerpt from Jack and the Beanstalk. What to do with a boy like Jack, 14 years old and still expects his mother to butter his bread. How idle his days, shooting marbles and making up songs and staring at clouds, the only rise coming when he spots a pretty girl pass and puffs up his chest, only to have his mum bunt her head out the window and shout, "Jack, go milk that good-for-nothing cow." Off he goes to the barn to pump the udders of Milky White, wishing he had his own house where he and Milky could live together, instead of here where they have no respect. He doesn't like his mother, mostly because she doesn't like him, and he dreams of making something of himself and stuffing it in her face, because wouldn't that be a happy ending? Proving the person wrong who treats you like nothing. And yet he can't wean himself off his mother's toil, as if the less she thinks of him, the more he clings to her, eating her food, sapping her hot water, tromping muddy boots in, and breaking her things like a plundering giant until she stops trying to keep the place nice, for what would be the point? Naturally, she blames the father, for it's a father's duty to whip Jack into shape, and the man was as useless as the son. He idled about the streets, jawing at strangers and badgering them for coins, trying to drum up change, only to go and lose it on dice, whereby he'd gamble greater sums he didn't even have, leaving him in perpetual debts to men smarter and more sober than he. Only at the peak of the moon would he slosh on home, pumped full of drink and crooning of all the treasures he'd buy when his luck turned round. Before his wife could smack him, he'd foist her a kiss and remind her, "Ain't I the one who got us Milky White on a strong roll of dice? Ain't I the one who made you a son?" And what could she say? For both things were true. And what could she say when he'd coddle Jack and tell the boy he had his dad's God-given charm, and that boys like Jack married beyond their means, just like his father had? That too was true, for Jack's mother was once the maiden Alina, a lovely, hard-working girl who every boy in town wanted for a wife. But she chose Jack's father because he was as handsome as he was slothful, and she thought, may as well marry a handsome one because sloth's something you can change. Learned her lesson, didn't she? Watched him loaf off with every dime they had, his debts growing bigger and bigger, until one day his debtors came for him, 5 burly shadows in the doorway, like the specters of giants, who marched him away and never brought him back. That's what you get for marrying a man you think you can change. Now she's poor and alone and stuck with his son, who's as hopeless as his father, and there'll be no changing the lad either. It was obvious what happened to the man, of course, and the widow thought Jack knew full well his dad had been sunk in the swamp or dumped down a hole, and the boy would heed the warning and scare on the rightful path. Little did she know he'd spun his own tale. Daddy wasn't dead at all, but whisked to a land high in the sky, where he'd been crowned king. And by the time his mother tried to imprint him with the truth, it was too late. "That's what he wants you to think," Jack would say, As he tells it, his dad had found happily ever after, free of his wife's claws, and now was counting riches in a faraway castle, waiting for his son to join him. And this has been a preview of Beasts and Beauty.